Welcome to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debbie DiMaggio. I could not be more thrilled to have back my guest and good friend, Ellie Shoja. Welcome, Ellie.
Hey, so good to see you. I'm so happy to be back here as well.
Oh my God, so much has evolved and we've gotten to know each other so much since I first had you. And I'm not going to go back to ask you about your incredible history and childhood because people will have to go back and tune into our first podcast that we did. And that is under Debbie DiMaggio and Ellie Shoja because there is a lot to unpack there. But we are going to move forward because
But
we have so much to talk about. I wrote down four things that I wanted to speak about, but let me properly introduce you. So Ellie Shoja is an author, celebrity ghostwriter, two-time TEDx speaker, and podcast host. She's the founder of International Authors Academy and co-founder of MasterCrash with comedy writer director David Zucker. Her proven book writing process helps her clients clarify their message, sharpen their positioning, and step into the authority their work deserves. Ellie is the author of Write a Book That Heals the World, Channeled Writing Made Easy, Your Heart Knows the Way, Oracle Deck, and the 13th Planet. Welcome, Ellie, to the show, back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you. So I'm going to take my notes so I stay on task. So I want to talk about Activate, now my book that you
yeah,
helped pull out of me. And we're going to talk about your process. Actually, we'll talk about your process first. Ellie is an incredible book coach. Did not know what the word was. This is my sixth book. I'd never heard of the word book coach. So I want to talk about activation. I also woke up this morning and the word opportunity just kept
yeah,
being on the lookout for opportunities, which is a quote I talk about all the time. I also want to talk about your friend and client, Megan, who called me again this morning and I helped her just randomly. She called and I gave her advice and she was activated. And then I want to talk about the upcoming book talk since we are live. And I've invited Ellie to come be part of my book talks rather than me just doing it alone because like she does, she pulls stuff out of you. You don't even know that's there and it comes out and it's there, but she knows how to pull it out. So first, let's go back. So Ellie is a book coach. I want to let people know what is the International Academy? How could people be a part of it? Because I know there's so many people who want to be authors, and you make it so easy.
yeah. Well, I have a completely different philosophy about writing books than most people do, and that is because I try to follow the conventional uh, methodology, as they say, that everybody teaches. You know, the conventional way of writing a book says, "Oh, you need to figure out what your book is about first." And to me, that's completely backwards because you're not supposed to decide what your book is. You're supposed to discover what your book is. And the reason over 99% of books get stuck in the middle, I believe, is because people try to decide what their book is when they don't even know what they want to say, what they have to say, what is inside of them. And then they try to force all of this stuff into, like,
Yeah.
cram it into one book. And when you came to me, you had 3 books in one book. And do you remember we had that conversation? I'm like, "Okay, well, this is great as an extraction document, what you had, but it's 3 different books. Which one do you want to write?" And that is the that is the hard part about writing a book. It's that the first phase of discovery, giving yourself enough space and honesty to say, "Oh, this is the message that wants to be born out of me." And when you give yourself permission to just explore without trying to force your book into a thing too early, some really magical things happen. Like your 5-step process has now a space to be born. Then you can get curious about yourself. Then you can really explore your ideas on a much deeper level when you're not trying to just force it into a shape because you think, oh, this is what it's supposed to be.
That I just
Does
have to
that
stop.
answer your question?
No, that is incredible. And so So for me, when I'm talking to people about, so my method, I have my
Mhm,
5-step method, set in motion method to help people accomplish their goals, whatever that goal may be, personal or business, or overcoming an addiction, or going through a divorce, or their next chapter. But when I tell them to start, is like start just to unleash, to process your thoughts,
mm,
and just free form writing. And that's what you tell us as writers, to just allow it, instead of what you're saying, because I'm so visual. When you were describing what you did just now, I was like, oh my God, we pick an idea and we want to stick with it because we think that's what we should do. Then we're trying to cram everything into this square, into a circle, because that's what
mm,
we decided, instead of letting it breathe. It's like
mm.
you allow us to let the ideas breathe free form,
Yeah.
and allow us to process, and then we bring it back together. So with how, when you work with Ellie, you go on Zoom with her, she pulls up your document. And the reason why I chose to work with Ellie and not anyone else was I didn't want anyone touching my words, not one word. People were asking, why don't you get someone, a publisher? And I said, no, I don't want anyone touching one word. It has to come from me, or I need to take ownership, because I can only talk about what I own and what I know innately. And so when I met Ellie, I was like, and she told me her process. This is exactly what I need. So you go up on Zoom with her. She has your document in front, and
Mhm.
she asks you a question, and then you start talking, and then she's writing. And then at the end of an hour, they're like, oh my God. And I thought I had my book when I went to you. And then we spent another 8 or 9 or 10 months together, and the book grew and grew. But what you pointed out to me, things that I thought, and I tell this to people all the time, because as you know, I'm referring
Mhm.
you people all the time. You think that someone understands something that you're talking about, like the lock-in method, which is wearing
Mhm.
headphones, and how I lock in and how I do everything when I really want to get laser focused. And you said, no, what does that mean? And so you made me, I mean, I had pages of describing what that was. And I thought it was so obvious. When I was talking to my publicist about locking in, she's like, no, I don't get it. You have to explain it. What does that mean? And so things that we take for granted that everyone will get
Mhm.
do not. And Ellie pulls that message out of you.
Yeah, it is fascinating to me because you have to understand when somebody's reading your book, they have no idea who you are. They have no frame of reference. They've never attended any of your classes. They don't know what you do in the world. All they have is this. Oh, all they have is this thing, that they pick up, and the pages, the words that are inside of it. So your book has to take someone by the hand and explain to them your thought process, step by step. And if we
Right.
lose the reader anywhere along the way, they're going to leave kind of confused, and then they're not going to have a good experience with your book. And the fascinating thing to me is how much we take for granted the stuff that we know. Like, you're an expert in your own life, in your own methods, and how you live your life, and the things that you teach. But you forget what it was like at the very
Mm.
start, those
Right.
discoveries early on that put you on this path. And I think a sign of a really great coach, or somebody who helps you explore your ideas, and if you're doing it yourself, I say in that first phase, your guiding mechanism is curiosity. If you're
Right.
doing it yourself, you have to get really curious about yourself, about your ideas. What do I mean by that? How did I do that? And just kind of like keep digging into it, because we really do take for granted all of the brilliance that's inside of us. And when somebody else asks you the question, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of a vital step. That is
Right.
interesting. And and that's why it's so nice to have people who are not really familiar with what you do, to be that sounding board. I tell my clients, if you don't have a book coach, that's fine. If you don't know how to be curious about yourself, that's fine. Ask the people in your life who are really great at asking questions to ask you
Right.
questions. Explain something to them and say, okay, just ask me any questions that come up. Where do you feel like it is unclear? What step have I skipped? And and get somebody, and we all have those people in our lives who are just endlessly curious, and they want to poke holes into everything, and those are your best friend type of a people. Not if they are critical,
Right,
not if
right.
they're
That makes
and not if they're critical and negative, but if they're curious, because curiosity early on when you're developing your ideas and getting clarity around your ideas, the curiosity is your biggest gift.
I love it. I used to be, people used to say I was nosy when I was younger because I was so curious, and it
Yeah.
hurt my feelings. But I couldn't understand. Um, I didn't understand, but then later in life
Mhm.
now, it's my superpower. I'm so curious about people, and I was always curious, but I didn't know how to combat someone who was coming at me negatively. And now it has always been my superpower because I've always been curious, not nosy, just I like to know how things work. And I'm so curious about people and their background. And I mean, going to South Africa was incredible because it was halfway around the world where I did my TEDx. And it was like, I got to ask all these questions, and I asked them, is it okay if I ask you questions? And they loved
Yeah.
it. And I said, ask me anything, but I love being curious. And it is where you really have strength in helping people be curious about, well, how does that really work? How do you do that? What do you mean? So because I mentioned the International Academy, tell us how people work with you on that, because I believe that is on school.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I work with people in a couple of different ways. One is one-on-one, like you and I worked, in which case we meet every single week. We have a standing appointment, and the reason for that is because writing a book is a marathon. It's a long process. Now you can get it done in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, but you gotta do it consistently. So when we meet every single week and we make a commitment to that, we build momentum, right? And part of that is, I say, writing is confusing most of the time. To be a writer is to be confused most of the time, which is why a lot of books don't get finished. So when we
Right.
meet every week, what we're working on is uh, clarity, number one. And I define clarity as knowing exactly what step to take next, right? So I know exactly what step to take next. And then when I take that next step, that immediate next step, consistently, week after week after week, your book just starts to take shape. It naturally just happens with very little time commitment, right? So it's very, very powerful. Now, in the one-on-one setting, it's nice because we have that accountability. In the
Yeah.
group setting, which is the academy, we have online courses, and there is group calls every week, but you are responsible for showing up to those. I'm not going to call you and say, hey, where are you?
Right.
Right? So in the group setting, the calls are on the calendar and you're responsible to show up. And it's not as personal, it is in a group setting. So when you're on the call, you can ask questions and so forth. And our job, then my job, is to identify where where you are in this moment, what your immediate next step is, and then what steps you need to take this week to next week in order to make progress moving forward. So we're
And that's
constantly identifying the okay, what's getting in our way, and then let's remove that barrier and move forward.
and what I want to follow up with is, so we meet for an hour, let's say we
Mhm.
would do it on
Yeah.
Monday, and I would have the week to take all of those words and that chapter and formulate it, into my chapter. So it was like we
Yeah.
would get it out, we would extract and get all the ideas, and then we'd format it, but then I would go back and on my time, I would do that before the next meeting. So it's just so helpful to get all the information out, and then you take your time locking in to formulate your chapter. One of the things I speak about is one of my favorite quotes that I came up with is, be on the lookout for magic. Be on the look for the, well, two of them, but look for the extraordinary in the ordinary. That's where the magic lies. Let's
Yeah.
break out a little bit, the opportunities. Like, you are an opportunity that came right into my vortex. So what do you say to that sort of a quote?
Oh my gosh. We live in such a magical world. There's opportunities everywhere, and there's an abundance of everything all around us. Anything that you want, you attract, you bring into your life. And the thing that is attracting all of these opportunities into your life is you. So and it's the crazy thing is that it's happening whether you're aware of it or not. You're surrounded by opportunities, whether you are aware of it or not. I mean, that is really quite incredible. It's really quite amazing because what that means is all it takes for you to start taking those opportunities is the shifting of your perspective in this moment to notice those opportunities, right? Because the
Abs-
opportunities are there no matter what. If you're willing to notice them, you will notice them and then you can take those opportunities. If you're not willing to notice them, you're not going to notice them. But they
Absolutely.
don't stop coming to you because that's the nature of this world. It does not stop coming to you. It's just if you're not noticing opportunities, it's because you're not in the perception space to notice and you're not allowing yourself to see them. That's, I think, so powerful because it's like you walk into a buffet and you have a blindfold on. Yeah, you're not going to see any of the food that's around you. You take the blindfold off and you're like, oh, look, there's all my favorite dishes everywhere. And
And
that's the inner work is taking the blindfolds off so you can see the opportunities and all of the goodies that are around you that want you to just receive them.
right. You just have to sometimes just look up and look around what's going on right in front of you. And one of my things I talk about in Mindset in Motion is saying yes to things. I say yes to things all the time, even if I don't know what it is. I say yes, and then I ask. And that's how I got my TEDx. Someone heard me on the
Yeah.
podcast, and they said, I heard you want to speak with your book and travel the world with your book, speaking and inspiring others. And I said, exactly. And she said, I heard you on the podcast. Would you like to join Keynoters? And I said, yes. And then I said, what's that? And she said, it's a speaking group. No sooner did I go on that 1 hour session I went on. It's
Mhm.
just everyone helps one another. The person, Frank King, came up and said, I can get anyone a TED, introduce anyone who'd like to do a TED talk. But the only thing is you have to go to South Africa. And then he was gone. He was on for less than 5 minutes. And I thought it was a mirage. I didn't think it was real, but it was my very first meeting. And he made the connection with the gal. And I went to South Africa. I'd never thought of going to
Wow.
South Africa. And for anyone who knows anything about TEDx's, they are very hard to get. And people pay Frank. They work with him monthly to put in application after application,
Mhm.
and try out and try to get into one. So it was one of those opportunities that came my way. And the other thing I talk about is speaking out and saying what you need. If you don't say what you need, we can't help you. And I say
Yeah.
that time again. But because we're talking about a TEDx, you said you did too. What were
I
your topics and how did you get your TEDx opportunities?
um it was so funny. The first TEDx I did, a friend of mine came over to our house, and she was about to go do a TEDx somewhere, and she was telling us about how she spent about $8,000 with this company, and they helped her get this TEDx, and they helped her write her talk, and so forth. And when she left, I told my business partner at the time, I said, you know, I bet I can get a TEDx if I wanted to. And so then I went on the TED website, and anyone can do this. Anybody can do this. I went on the TED website. They have a list of all of the TEDx events. Now, I didn't want to travel anywhere. I wanted it to be local, so I narrowed it down by anything I could drive to. And then I narrowed it down to anything that was in the next, 6 months. The TED events will close the registration at least 2 months before the event. So I didn't bother to look at anything that was within the next 2 months because I knew the speaker applications would be closed. But I went 2 months out and I just started going down the list and Googling. And the thing with TED is it's all volunteer. No one's getting paid. So a lot of TED events will pop up because people are like, oh, I want to host a TED event. But then it's so much work that it dies after one event. So you have to go item by item and just look at the website and see if it's active or if it's inactive, if there's an event coming up in the future. If you do a couple of hours of this, just like looking at all of the events, narrowing it down to whatever geography you want and whatever timeline you want, and start going down and Googling them and going to the actual official website, you'll see a certain number of them are. Is my sound okay,
I
Debbie?
know
I
I'm
just,
hearing a, I was like, is that me? I was wondering if it was me. I heard it,
yeah,
but it worked.
I just want to make sure because my mic is kind of blinking, so I'm not
It
sure.
sounds
But you can
better.
hear me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so then you have to go to the actual website and you'll find a certain number of them that are actually active and still accepting speaker applications. Now, with TED, your topic is really important. You want your topic to be relevant to the theme of the event. You want it to be catchy and interesting. So then you write the application. The application will take you like 10 minutes to write. Once you have your topic, you may need to do a little bit of brainstorming and seeing what you actually want to talk about. But you'll write your application. You submit it. I submitted to about I think 7 of them. I did about 2 hours of research, submitted to 7, forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I got a message from one of them, which was in Orange County, which is an hour away from me. And I was the first person they accepted into that
Wow.
event. And then they asked me, it was a women's event. So all female speakers. And they asked me, do you know any other really interesting, powerful women? I recommended about 10 women. 7 of them got got got
Wow.
accepted into it. So it ended up being, you know, half of the speakers were us, me and my friend. And so we
Wow.
we hosted speaker salons at my house where I think we hosted like 4 or 5 of them, where we would invite other friends to come and listen to the talks as we were developing them and
Wow.
refine them and so forth, leading up to the event. And then when we went down, it was half the audience was us. And of all of our friends, we all knew each other. It ended up being such a fun event. And then the second one, the same thing. I wanted to do another talk a few years later, and I did the same exact process, spent about 2 hours researching events that are coming up, submitted to a bunch of them, and got accepted into a San Diego TED event, which is a couple of hours away from me. And again, I was the first talk that
Oh
they
my
accepted.
gosh.
No auditions, nothing. It was so interesting. I got the acceptance letter, and then I found out that they're holding auditions for a bunch of the spots.
I
But I
just
had
learned
already,
because
yeah.
I was, I didn't, I just learned that there were auditions typically. And so you did,
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
so if you
Yeah.
want to
So
write a book and you want to get a TED Talk, go to Ellie. She will help you get one as well. We have to go right to commercial break. We'll be right
sure.
back with Ellie Shoja.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant. Like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debbie DiMaggio. We are here with my book coach, Ellie Shoja. She is incredible. In my book, I talk about activation and the importance of activation in the mindset and motion method. And Ellie, just humor me. Tell me about how I activate.
Oh my gosh, Debbie. Okay, so Debbie DiMaggio is one of the biggest action takers on this planet. You are so incredible, Debbie. Um, it's funny, during the book signing event last week, you stepped away for a minute, and then people were asking me about you. They were asking me. I don't know if you heard any of that, but they
No,
were
I
asking.
didn't. I didn't hear
They were
any.
they were asking me about you and your personality and so forth. And I said to them, Debbie she does not let anything stop her. Right? She might, if she feels insecure about something or imposter syndrome or overwhelmed or anything, she might feel those things, but she doesn't let those things stop her. Once she knows what steps she needs to take, she takes the steps no matter what else is present. She doesn't let self-doubt stop her or overwhelming, not knowing how to do something. And you are this incredible action taker. And I think I don't know where it comes for you, and maybe that is something for you to speak to,
Yeah,
but that is such an amazing quality to have. And you have also the ability to, because you don't let these things stop you. You have this ability to give people permission to not let it stop them.
mm,
So then you activate yourself, you activate others. You're like, oh no, this is, yeah, you might feel overwhelmed right now, but just take that step. Just do it. Okay, what is it you need to do? Just go do that. There's no question. There's no question of whether or not. It's just the question of, okay, now that I know what to do, I'm just gonna go do it.
okay, that's really helpful because I'm trying to figure out how I do what I'm doing with other people. So you're describing how I am about myself, which helps
Uh-huh.
me in the coaching. And I hate the word coaching. It's like, I don't like that word, but there's got to be a better word. But so, like your friend Megan, you had Megan call me out of the
Yes.
blue, and a client of yours, and you said she wasn't doing well. She was just kind of bummed. And you said, just call Debbie. And I'm curious how, like, you said to call me, and how are you confident that I could help her? Because then I did help her. And then she called again this morning and I just
Yeah.
helped her again out of the blue. She just called me and I'm like,
Well, Megan called me and she had been in a funk. Now you have to understand, Megan is such a powerful individual herself, right? She is
absolutely
smart. She is brilliant. She's at the top of her she's a vocal coach and she works with Juilliard musicians. Like she is at the top of
right.
her field and she is so incredibly brilliant. And she has a couple of businesses and she was in a funk, right? So she called me, she was frustrated, she was doing all this stuff, and I told her two things. I said, "Listen, stop doing anything that feels like a chore,
Mhm. Love
right?
that.
Don't do stuff out of I need to do it and out of obligation. Just stop doing that. And secondly, call Debbie. She's going to sort you out."
So she, and again, it
Yeah.
goes back to how you train us in writing. She was
Yeah.
containing herself into what she thought she had to do, I
Mhm.
guess. And then you said, no, just stop and just
Mhm.
don't do those things. And that's kind of you retrained us, you to retrain us in our writing. It's still our writing, but you retrain us. And that's, I guess, the importance of coaching. But so when she called me, she was in a funk and she is at the highest level. And what I say, how I help people is I guess I give them permission or I nudge them off the the building and say, because it's them that does the work in the end.
Yeah.
I'm just giving them that permission and a lot of context to help them. People that I know will help them. I can't help them, but during some of the doing some of those things, but I have a lot of people I can connect them to. And I guess we talked for about an hour. I was like in my car getting my nails done. We were just talking and I'm like, well, anytime someone calls me, I say get a piece of paper and pen because all of a sudden my mind's going to start just shooting stuff out. And when she came now a month later, she happened to come to the book signing, which was incredible last week that I pulled you in, thankfully and thankful. Thank you for coming in and supporting me in that. And she came in and she shared what I had done to help her. And I was blown away. I forgot all of the people I had referred her to. And she said she activated and implemented
Mhm.
everything. And
Yeah.
that goes back to the activation. It's, yes, I activate for myself. It's just how I am, but everyone can do it. And that's why I asked the question about the activation. Everyone can do it. And I didn't do Megan's work today when she called me
Mhm.
and I understood how she felt because I get those same frustrations in real estate. And so I was able to walk her through it, but she's going to do the work. I just helped
Yeah.
activate her a little bit and then push her over. But yeah,
And so there's a thing I'm gonna get a little religious. I'm not
yeah,
a Christian, but I love Jesus. And when Jesus would heal people, how did he heal people? He literally did not see the illness in them.
mm,
His perception filtered out the illness to the point that he saw someone, they were seeing themselves as ill, they were
mm,
seeing themselves as limited, and he would look at them and he would see health and he would see possibility. And his perception, he would hold that vision with such clarity that the illness could no longer exist.
wow,
It had to stop existing. And I think there's a level of that in what you bring to the table.
yes,
You look at someone, they might feel they're being limited by these storylines, but when you're looking at them, you are seeing the possibility. And you're
right,
seeing the possibility with such incredible clarity that the limitation no longer exists. And all of those things, it's like you're not buying into the
right,
storyline that they have created. And you're saying, "Oh no, I okay, here's the new story that I am offering to you. The new story is that all of these doors can open for you. And
I,
they
uh,
will and they should. And just go do this and all the doors are already open. You just walk through them."
it
And
just
you
reminds me of when I met Danny for the first time, and he said, "Well, I have a book I want to do, but I have 4 kids and I don't have time." And I
yeah.
said, "We just met 5 minutes ago, but and I'm quite bossy when I know something in my head. I
Yeah.
said, nope, no excuses. I'm going to connect you to Ellie right now, and you're going to write your book. Just have a consult with her.
Mhm.
That's all. That's
Yeah.
all. Not more than 2 days later, he called me and he said, "Guess who's writing their book?" And I,
Yeah.
it's
And
like I
and
took away
you
all that stuff that was in front of him. I know he was busy, and I know he's a busy real
mhm.
estate agent. He has kids and activities and everything else he does. But I was just like, doesn't exist. I know you want to do it and you need to do it.
And Danny is a great example. I mean, honestly, he's gonna write the Bible for real estate agents. Like it's so powerful the book he's writing, and less than 2 months into it, working 1 hour a week, the the incredible clarity that we have, the power of this book that is being birthed out of him. And he tells me, he's like, this is my favorite part of the week. And
Right.
he doesn't need to do any work outside of our calls, and it's still getting done, and it's
Yeah.
really fun and it's really exciting. So it's and that's the thing. It's like they see the limitation of, I have 4 kids, I have a business, I have this, I have that, and you're like, no, 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 no. There's no limitations here. It can happen so much faster and so much easier than you're imagining. Just talk to her and you'll see. And then and then a whole new world has opened up. Like for you, a whole new world of speaking has opened up,
Absolutely.
and of coaching has opened up. And that's like opening up for him, just like 1 hour of getting on a call and having fun a week.
Right. And it is truly fun. Anyone who thinks that it's a lot of work, it is not. She allows you, in the
Mhm.
beginning, I had a lot written, but she allows you just to write, write, write. Don't make it
Yeah.
hard. Just get everything out, and then you meet, and she takes the reins. So she's driving the car, meaning that you're writing for us, and we could just freely talk, and we're not hindered by anything. It's not like we have to put pen to paper or we have to correct our spelling.
Yeah.
It's like you just allow us to get our message out, and it's easy and it's fun, and it's just, I'd say, Adam, you go golf, I'm going to do this. And it's very easy. And so that's how I look at, when I'm helping people and answering their questions, or I'm not seeing what they're seeing. But believe
Mm.
me, I've been there before. I walked into your house one day. I was so depressed. I just got off the phone with someone who was paying close to $80,000
Wow.
to get his book published, and he had teams
Wow.
of all these specialists. And I got so depressed, and my book was just about to be finished, and I said, I guess I'm done. I guess I can't do this, because I'm not going to spend 60, 80,000 to do whatever I need to do. I'll just write it and be done with it. And then I came to your house and you told me about speaking websites and this, and I'm like, oh God, I don't have another website. It's like, oh my God, that's going to take more energy. And anyway, I was super frustrated, and you somehow, as you always do, just got me just calm. And I think with like a couple weeks later, my website was fully in motion,
Mhm.
bookdebbie.com. Beautiful. And you just those are that's how, like, so I do get frustrated, but then I just kind of get back on the horse, and I try to tell people it's okay. Like I told Megan today, I get that way too. I get frustrated if someone wants to question me,
Yeah.
or question my work or my value. Of course it's frustrating, especially, real estate. I've been doing it for 35 years. I can do it in my
Mhm.
sleep. I'm very good at what I do, and she's
Yeah.
very good at what she does. So she was trying to speak with a client, and I said, I get it, I understand you, how you're feeling. Then I said, now I asked her a few more questions, and then I said, I see it from your client's point of view, because he only has this much information, but you
Mhm.
just gave this much information. Make sure you write that out and bring in his wife. And then she said, oh yeah, she really sees the value. I go, well, write it out. I go, it's okay to be upset, but I can understand his point of view. Now write it out. And she's right. And so it just takes an like, you
Yeah.
help me all the time when I get overwhelmed. We can get overwhelmed. We have
Mhm.
permission to get
Yeah.
overwhelmed, but then just execute and activate. And when you activate, and that is where the magic happens.
Yeah. It's the activation is uh, taking the step. And a lot of times things are so much easier than you think they're
Yes.
going to be.
Right.
When I remember that day when you came over, you were so discouraged. And you're like, oh my God, how much more do I, and the thing though is that you can make things as complicated and as difficult as you want, and you can make them as easy and smooth as you want, and it's, you guys, none of this is rocket science.
Right.
No one knows what they're doing. Nobody knows anything. Everyone's just kind of guessing and stumbling forward and just doing their best. We're all just doing our best. We're all just doing our best. So just do your best. Like with that day, there's like, yes, okay, you could spend $80,000 and get your book published, or you can spend $3,000 and get your book published. you know, it's it's not in how much money you spend. You can, it's in kind of like, I think what we talked about is, with your speaker website, for example, um, it's brand perceived value. You can spend very little money and have a lot of really thoughtful content on there, and create a brand perceived value that is very high. And you don't need to spend $100,000 to do that. You could, but you don't need to. So there's a lot of different ways of doing things, and it just comes down to thoughtfulness um, and what is important, and just focusing on those things. If you have very few resources, you just focus on the immediate thing that needs to get done, not on like 50 different things that could get done. So it actually, I actually really like those limitations because it forces you to focus. Like
Right.
when you came and we had 3 books that you could have written, you know limiting it to one book and deciding which book we want to write actually creates a better book than trying to force 3 books into one. So the limitations are a good thing for us.
Right. What do you say to people like when Danny first came to you or other people who are like, well, I want to write a book, but what are some limiting beliefs they have, or what is some advice that you can give? 3 pieces of advice you would give people. Doesn't have to be long answers, but what kind of things do people come to you when they're just kind of stuck, and what do you tell them how to
Um,
activate?
I'll give you one piece of advice. A lot of times people have a lot of misconceptions about writing books. And uh, part of it, the core reason, like all of these misconceptions of, oh, I don't have enough time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes this, like a lot of those misconceptions and limiting beliefs are rooted in the bad advice of how to write a book. The conventional method says, we talked about this a little earlier, the conventional method says you have to come up with your book idea first, you decide it, and then you come up with your chapters next, and then you decide it, and then you start writing. Now the problem with writing a book in that sequence is that as you're writing it, your brain is trying to do 4 very distinctly different things all at the same time. It's trying to come up with ideas, organize ideas, write those ideas, put them into nice
Wow,
written form,
so true.
and edit those ideas, 4 distinctly different things all at the same time. And what we know from multitasking research is that it doesn't work. Multitasking doesn't work. If a task takes you 15 minutes to complete and you pair that task with one other task, now that 15-minute task takes you an hour. And the finished result is not even as good as if you had just focused for 15 minutes. Now you're trying to do 4 things. Of course, you're not going to finish your book. Of course, it's going to take you forever. Of course, it's going to be 10 years of hours after hours after hours because you're spending 90% of those hours fighting with yourself. Of course, it's
Right.
not going to work. So, the brilliance of what we do is we unitize. First, we ideate. We just pull everything you want to say out. And then we look at what you want to say, and then we discover what the different books are. It's like, oh, there's 3 books. There's one on parenting. There is one on this methodology. There is one on that event. Like, okay, that's interesting. Which one do I have fuel for? Which one wants to be written?
Mm.
Right? And then we take that into phase 2. And if you remember this, phase 2, we don't pull chapters out of thin air. We turn the lens from curiosity about myself to curiosity about the reader. And that's how our outline is created, right? Because in a nonfiction book, your reader's journey is your hero's journey.
Mm.
So that's so when I know that, then I need to know where my reader is at the beginning of the book, where my reader is at the end of the book, and what do they need to learn and unlearn to get from point A to point B. So it's a very different way of writing a book than, oh, I'm gonna decide, and then I'm gonna decide, pull things out of thin air, and then of course you're gonna get stuck. So my number one advice is, send your editor, that internal voice that wants to edit you,
Mhm.
away, far,
Oh,
far
yes.
away, and then just sit and extract. We call the first phase, the ideation phase, we call it extraction. Just extract every day, 15, 20 minutes, extract whatever you want to say. Don't worry about a book. You're not writing a book because you don't know what your book is. So don't worry about that. So you're not supposed to decide your book. You're going to discover it along the extraction path. So that's my number one advice.
I love it. It just gives people permission to just write and just get it out and, like you said, extract. So what would you tell we're just about to wrap up in 2 minutes. What would you tell your younger self of where you are today from where you started?
Um, what would I tell my younger self? I think I would tell her, um, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about a thing.
Exactly.
Every little thing's going to be all right.
How do people get a
Great
hold of you?
advice.
You have two things. You have the Writers Academy, but then you have uh, the what is the project that you work on with David? So you have two things. And how do
Oh,
people
we
get a
have
hold
MasterCrash. So I
of you?
work
Yeah,
with David Zucker, who is the writer, director of movies like Airplane and Naked Guns and Scary Movies 3 and 4. And we have a comedy course called MasterCrash, where we help people write better comedy. So that's at mastercrash.com. And the best way to get a hold of me is actually on Instagram at Brave Ellie. Or you can go to my authorsacademy.com and yeah, and ask me any questions about book writing. I'm always happy to be of
and
service on that front.
where did Brave Ellie come from? Where did I always every day I think of it when I go to tag you on everything.
My last name, Shoja, in Farsi, which is my native tongue, means brave.
Oh, I love it.
And my first name means inspiration. So I am literally named Brave Inspiration.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Oh my God. And because we are live, we can tell
Yeah.
you that on August 19th at 6:30, I've invited Ellie again to take part in my book talk because I can't do
Yeah.
anything with Ellie. So we'll be at Diesel, a bookstore in Brentwood from at 6:30 on, I think it's Wednesday, August 19th. So
Yeah.
please come see us and
Yeah.
definitely reach out to Brave Ellie on Instagram. Thank you so much, Ellie, once again for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
So fun.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Success with host Debbie DiMaggio. Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Real stories, real strategies, real success.